Good afternoon and welcome to the public session of the Audit Committee on September 27th. I'm going to be chairing the agenda until we have the election of the chair. So I'd like to welcome everyone and call to order this meeting. And I'm going to ask Trustee Reynolds to do the acknowledgement of traditional lands.
Thank you. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Ottawattaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, waters, plant, animals, ancestors that walk before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us.
Thank you very much. Item 1.3, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our new General Manager of Financial Services, Jay Chantavong. Trustees are already familiar with Jay as he was in his previous role, the Manager of Budget, and has made his appearance at numerous board meetings before. He is now joining us in his new capacity as our Controller, Jackie Sweetman, has retired over the summer, and Jay's taking over that role. Jay has over 10 years of experience in the school board sector with over 3 in our school board alone. So we would like to congratulate Jay for his new appointment and welcome to the team. I don't see you, Jay. Maybe you just want to put your camera on and say hello to everyone.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Roxana, and I look forward to attending all these audit committee meetings and working with you all in this capacity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we also look forward, Jay and myself have had quite a number of years of working together in both our current capacities and previous roles. And I know that we are in great hands when it comes to everything that's technical, as well as being proactive and taking on any challenge that comes his way. And with that, we will go to item 1.4, declarations of a possible conflict of interests. And this time, for the first meeting of the fiscal year, we also have the annual conflict of interest declaration form that needs to be completed by the members of the audit committee. So I'd like to ask if there's any conflicts of interest of possible conflict of interest for this meeting, and then we will circulate to have these completed by the audit committee members. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Could I have a mover of the agenda? Trustee Reynolds. Any debate or changes to the proposed changes to the agenda?
I believe you need a seconder.
Oh, public session, I need a seconder. Could I have a seconder? Trustee Caller, thank you very much. Any questions around the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? If you could put your hand up, thank you, and that passes unanimously. So moving on to ratification items. Item 2.1, minutes of the audit committee meeting for the meeting of May 3rd, 2022 has been included in your package. Could I have a mover to put this on the floor? Trustee Reynolds, and a seconder. Thank you, Sana. Any comments or debate? Seeing none, could we have a vote to approve the minutes as presented in your package? Thank you, and that passes unanimously. Item 2.2, and in particular 2.2.1, we are up to the election of the Audit Committee Chair for the year 2022-2023 in accordance with Regulation 36110. I'm just going to get to that section. Do we have any names to be put forward for consideration? I'm going to go through that 3 times. Trustee Collard. Trustee Collard is putting her name forward for a nomination. Calling a second time, are there any other names to be put forward for the position of chair? And a third time, are there any other nominations for the position of chair? And seeing none, I would like to congratulate Trustee Collard for the position of chair. And at this point, I would pass it on for a few words as well as to take over the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. We have an ambitious agenda today, so I'll just continue with the agenda and leave any remarks to be made along the way. So we do have the recommendation, which I believe you should still chair for Superintendent Nagoy. I do think we need to have the motion passed, and I'm not yet chair.
Yes, thank you for keeping me organized. I do not make a great chair. So I'm going to then put the resolution on the floor. Be it resolved that Trustee Collard be appointed as chair of the Audit Committee for the year for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Could I have a mover? Trustee Reynolds, and a seconder. Thank you, Sana. And any debate? Seeing none, please raise your hands for the vote if all in favor. Thank you very much, and that passes unanimously. And at this point in time, I'm going to pass it on to Chair Collard.
Thank you very much for leading us to this point. We now have the election of the Audit Committee Vice Chair for 2022-2023, and I'd like to seek any indication of interest from the members. Thank you very much. Sana has put her name forward. I will ask again for any interest from our members in the position of Vice Chair. And I will ask a third time for any interest amongst our members for the position of Vice Chair of the Audit Committee. Thank you very much. That concludes the nomination period for the position of Vice Chair, and now we need to have the recommendation brought forward. Be it resolved that Sana Malik be appointed as Vice Chair of the Audit Committee for the 2022-2023 fiscal year, and I so move, and I need a seconder. Thank you, Trustee Reynolds. That's seconded by Trustee Reynolds. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you very much. That passes. And Sana, congratulations. You are now Vice Chair of the Audit Committee.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Amy.
Oh, thank you for taking on the role. It's very meaningful to have someone that's an external member helping at this level. Now I would like to invite Superintendent Nagoy to speak to item 2.4.1, the Audit Committee Annual Report to the Board and Ministry.
Thank you. Through the chair to the Audit Committee. This is the annual report outlining the duties and work of the Audit Committee for the fiscal year 2021-2022. It outlines the work performed in terms of meetings, governance, the work with external auditors and internal auditors, It outlines the attendance at the meetings that have been required. It is for the period of September 28th to today, including. So therefore, the draft report in your package does not contain today's attendance, but will be updated before it goes to the board and forwarded to the audit committee. Thank you, and we would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I think we'll put the motion on the floor. Be it resolved that the Audit Committee approve the 2021-2022 annual report to the Board of Trustees and the 2021-2022 annual report to the Ministry, and forward the reports to the Board of Trustees for acceptance. I'm looking for a mover, please. Trustee Reynolds, and a seconder. Thank you, Sana. Are there any comments or questions regarding this annual report? Thank you. Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving forward with the Audit Committee Policy and Governance Procedure. And once again, Superintendent Ngoy.
Thank you. And through the chair to the Audit Committee, we are bringing this back on behalf of the Audit Committee for review and to be recommended to the board for review and approval. The date for review was December 2022, and keeping in mind the term of office, we wanted to move it a little bit sooner. Also recommending that this will be a 4-year review cycle going forward, so that every term of trustees will have a chance to go through once to review more often if necessary. It should the regulation change, but at least once during their term of office. We have passed this through legal counsel just to ensure that there have been no changes that we may not be aware of in terms of expectations and regulations. And it has been confirmed that there have been none since we've drafted the policy and the procedure. So therefore, the recommendation for the Audit Committee is to review a couple of suggested changes that were done more administratively and to align them to the board. And that's in the procedure only. So the policy, other than the date, doesn't have any recommended changes. The procedure has a recommended change with regards to the minutes, which will be similar to the Board of Trustees, reviewing and receiving minutes at the next scheduled meeting. So that's really the only suggested change for consideration of the Audit Committee. And I would be happy to take any questions or make additional edits before we forward it to the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you for this, Superintendent Ngoy. As you know, this will come to Committee of the Whole. I believe it will first show up in board agenda on the first meeting in October, then it will go to Committee of the Whole, and then it will come for the second meeting in October for decision. There are no material changes to the policy or the governance procedure. So I believe this will go through Committee of the Whole very quickly, but it is our process to ensure that trustees have their eyes on these documents before they go for decision. Trustee Reynolds, did you wish to add anything?
Yes, through the chair. When I read the language before the next meeting, I'm just wondering whether we need to provide more clarity, whether that's providing sufficient notice to members of the committee or members of the public. Should we be more defined, because our meetings are not, we don't have a lot of meetings through the year. We have 3 or 4 or special meetings. So I'm just wondering, should we be a little bit more specific on that timing?
Are you looking for a minimum number of days before the meeting, Trustee Reynolds?
Yeah, or I just wondered whether, as a courtesy, we should be giving sort of reasonable notice as to what we could expect. Before the next meeting could be the day before. I'm not suggesting that is the position or the direction that staff would take. I'm just I'm just asking whether that all parties would kind of have a better clarity onto when would be a reasonable amount of time in which we could see them.
Superintendent Nagoy?
Thank you. I think the thought behind that is that they are included in the package when they're circulated, and they're circulated the week before on Thursdays or Friday, with the meeting being on Tuesday. So that would provide the audit committee with the opportunity to review the entire package, including the minutes at that time. Currently, I believe we have 30 days after the meeting. So they're circulated separate from the package. I shouldn't say separate. They're circulated in advance of the package, then included again in the package. So we are doing it twice currently. And the proposal was that they will be included in the audit committee package when it's issued, the week before the meeting, if that is satisfactory to the committee.
Through the chair, just to follow up, thank you very much for clarifying. I absolutely appreciate your clarification for those who might be coming on the board, on the audit committee board. And so thank you for that.
And it looks like it's compliant with the Ontario regulations. So that would also be good to know. Sana, did you have any comment or question?
Not at this time. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. Okay. So we will just have to find the motion. Down my page. Sorry about that. Be it resolved that the audit committee reviewed the audit committee board policy and recommend it to the board of trustees with no changes. Be it resolved that the audit committee recommend to the board of trustees an amendment to the audit committee governance procedure to revise the wording to ensure minutes are taken at each meeting and provided to committee members before the next meeting. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Reynolds, seconded by Sana. Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And then going back to our agenda, we have our communications to the audit committee. The first is a report from Deloitte. So I will ask Lillian Chung to please speak to report 3.1.1, agreed upon procedures report, 7-month report.
Perfect. Thank you. And through the chair, on an annual basis, as part of the province consolidation and closing of its March 31st year end, school boards are required to report to the ministry on its March 31st accounts. And on an annual basis, as your auditors, we are also required to perform certain procedures as requested and outlined by the Ministry of Education on the March 31st balances, as well as 7-month results of operations of the school board. As included in your package today, we have issued, dated May 13th, our report as a result of those procedures. You will see and note that based on those procedures that were conducted by us back in the early spring, there were no issues identified, and the report was clean. So these procedures are done for every single school board across the province, and they're consistent, outlined by the ministry. So these are very much procedures that are consistent across the board, with very limited judgment identified by us as your auditors. As a point of clarification, this is not a full-blown audit. It is just certain specific procedures. So consistent with prior years as well, that's been included here for your information only.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions regarding this report? Seeing none, thank you very much, Lillian, and we look forward to hearing from you later in the agenda.
Thank you.
Next up will be our Regional Internal Audit Manager, Andrea Eltherington, giving us the Regional Internal Auditor Status Report.
Thank you very much, and through the chair. So I wanted to inform the Audit Committee that on July 10th, Waterloo Region District School Board experienced a cyber incident. That incident affected the Regional Internal Audit Team ability to access their files because we are hosted by the Waterloo Region District School Board, and that may result in a delay of the audit plans. I will take any questions if there are any before moving on. Okay. For the planned audits, we have the procurement audit follow-up is scheduled to start in September, and the staff mental health and well-being terms of reference is attached for your reference, and that is scheduled to start in October. Again, I'm open to any questions in relation to that. Okay. The last part is just annually, the Regional Internal Audit Team confirms that they're in compliance with the International Standards for Professional Practice of Internal Auditing in relation to the continuing development. So we have the training that we completed in 21-22, as well as a statement from each of the auditors that we have completed all of the training necessary to maintain our professional designations. And then we also have some planned training for 22-23. And open to any questions in relation to any of that.
Leah or Sana, do you have any comment or question regarding this report? Seeing none, thank you very much for this report on Andrea. And I believe the next report is also yours, Staff Mental Health Audit Terms of Reference 3.1.3.
So for the staff mental health and well-being, so as you'll remember, we did the student mental health and well-being. This is the second part of that review. It was broken into two so that we could focus appropriately. This follows our standard for an audit, where we'll be looking, the background is we'll be looking at the strategic risk management process, and we'll be looking at the how staff mental well-being may be negatively impacted, especially in light of what we've gone through in the last couple of years and how that relates to being in the classroom. So we're looking for definitions around the control statements in relation to this because it is part of the strategic plan. If those include timeframes of when they'll be completed, any criteria measurement that's been developed to measure the impact of the control statement, and then how often the risk register is updated in regards to that. So we've had an initial meeting with Sari and his team to come up with this terms of reference, as well as to look at the timing for that, and they agreed that we could start in October, so we'll be kicking that off soon.
Thank you for this. I know this audit is much anticipated. Do we have any questions from Leah or Sana or comments regarding the terms of reference? Seeing none, thank you again for this report, Andrea, and we look forward to seeing the results and the recommendations coming from it. Thank you. Next on our items is 3.1.4, 2021-2022 financial statement process updates for Superintendent Nagoy.
Thank you. And for the chair, we wanted to bring to the attention of the Audit Committee a couple of updates with regards to the financial statements process. While our audit work is on track based on the schedule that we have presented earlier, we do have a couple of concerns. The ministry released SB Memo 24 on September 20th, where they, for the first time, they've confirmed that they are requiring school boards or directing school boards to consolidate their proportional share of the Ontario School Boards Insurance Exchange, or OSBI, which is our insurance provider cooperative for almost all the school boards in the province. And that offers a couple of challenges that we wanted to inform the audit committee at this point. Number one, the amount of work to determine how to evaluate or to measure our proportional share. The statements of the of OSBI are in IFRS standards, international standards, as opposed to public standards, PSAB. So they would have to be first converted and then determine how they are going to be trickling through ours. So there's quite a bit of work on that front. However, the biggest concern that we have, us management as preparers of the financial statements, and it's aligned with our external auditor, is whether or not us as individual school board, Halton District School Board, do we have can we exert any control over OSBI? And based on our understanding, the answer is no. The individual school boards do not have any power to or control over OSBI, and therefore shouldn't be consolidated. And if it is consolidated, and if it is material enough, our proportional share, then we risk to have qualified opinion, and actually it's a double qualification, not just one, that our external audit partner may be able to talk to you a little bit more. I know the memo suggests that we could delay and file them on December 6th. So mid-November is usually the regular time frame to file the audited financial statements. In light of Board of Trustees changing on November 15th, the ministry has suggested we could go to December 6th. My concern is we could go to January and we may still not have the information or all the answers to this. So at this point in time, I would like the audit committee to know, based on my professional opinion, the financial statements will likely be late. And I cannot tell you how late, and I can also not tell you whether or not and how we're going to, if we're going to consolidate, how we're going to consolidate, because, as accountants, we have to also satisfy that we are recommending to the audit committee a proper course of action. There are, in the memo, the ministry is directing school boards to do so, and there are financial implications from holding back funds. So we are a bit in the middle of, the ministry directing us to do this, and the auditors provincially, not just our external auditors, disagreeing with that decision. So we're a little bit caught in the middle. It is quite a big topic that we are working through COSBO, the big six audit firms, the ministry, trying to get to speak with the Auditor General and trying to understand their opinion, because this is as a result of the Auditor General's value for money audit in their 2021 report on school boards, and the firm suggestion in there that this should be consolidated at the school board level. I know there's questions. This is serious, and this is quite keeping me up at night. If you're asking me what keeps me up at night these days, this certainly is one big item. I wanted to see if our external audit partner had a few other thoughts to share with the audit committee before we open it up for questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Ngoy. To echo your sentiments, this is quite a concern for the big six audit firms. We certainly have been in discussion as an audit firm sector It's not isolated, certainly, to Halton District School Board, nor to any other singular board. So I think the one comfort you have is in the fact that it is a sector-wide issue. And certainly from an audit firm perspective, we are working very hard and recognizing that school boards are trying to work through COSBO to reach the ministry. We are also trying through our channels as well to have that discussion. The issue of whether or not we would arrive at a qualified audit opinion is something that is very difficult for us to determine at this point. The major issues being that OSB does have a different fiscal year end, different accounting standards. And so numerically, it's very difficult to actually have insight as to what that amount actually truly will be as it relates to Halton District School Board as a whole. So that relativity is very important in us determining whether or not there will actually be an impact on the audit opinion. So it certainly is a potential outcome, but it certainly might not be the only outcome, even if that were to be consolidated. So I think we are at a point where there are a lot of unknowns still at this point. We're also not certain as to whether or not OSB will be able to provide this information yet at this early stage. Having said that, to arrive at these numbers, it takes quite a bit of work. So if this information is not readily available on somebody's end, be it OSB or at the kind of sector level, there will be quite a bit of work to get to the deadlines in terms of financial reporting. So we are trying our very best to, from an audit firm perspective, to try to obtain an understanding and really reach the ministry to understand what is the ultimate consequence and potential consequence. So stay tuned. It's very much a hot topic for us as well.
Can I just ask before we take this to the committee members, can we have a follow-up report on this in November so that we know where we stand?
Yes, absolutely. So either would be the financial statements as we recommend them, or an update report to inform the committee that the statements are not ready and where we are. The other wrinkle to this is that we do have a special board meeting scheduled on November 9th. So we will, through the audit committee chair, inform the board chair if we will not need that meeting. So unfortunately, I won't know in a week or two, but I certainly will know, a couple of weeks ahead of that meeting. So we certainly see that as a possibility that we just, or maybe we continue that discussion at that special board meeting if the chair so chooses, just with an update, but at least to inform the board chair that the item that the meeting was raised for will not be presented as an action item, but rather an update. And I'll leave that with the audit committee chair to discuss with the board chair, but that's just flagging that for your attention.
I do believe there will be other action items for that special board meeting. So I believe the meeting will proceed anyway, because we still need to wrap up the term. And that it leads to my next concern, being that if the financial statements are not ratified by this term of trustees, then we are asking several brand new trustees to be approving these, and there may be a learning curve involved in understanding the financial statements. So just to have that on your radar. Now I'm going to pass it over to Leah, whose hand is up.
Thank you, through the chair. And thank you for this report, highlighting your concerns of the ministry wanting us to consolidate with OSB. I guess I take comfort in that all boards, what I'm hearing is all boards are in the same boat, that we're all in it together. We have the same challenge. I guess my concern is, after hearing that an extension may not just do it, what's the impact of a qualified audit opinion? What impact to our board?
So usually a qualified audit opinion is an issue when somebody is reviewing our financial statements and asking whether or not they can actually depend on the information, or be satisfied that they are accurate, complete, and so forth. So qualified opinion will jeopardize our financial credibility. It's not quite the same as for a publicly traded company, for example, where investors would be looking for that information and really impacting stocks and market and so forth. So it's from that perspective, we would continue to be funded. We would continue to be operating within the same parameters. So that will not change. However, it's not ideal to have a qualified opinion, and the requirement from the auditors is to rectify. So every year we're going to have to try to rectify. Having said that, we have worked as a sector through something similar when the deferred capital contribution came in place, which is a bit of a hybrid PSAB applied to school boards. And so that took some consultation with the PSAB board, the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, and the auditors and the Auditor General and the ministry. So I could see this going through that sort of road. I really wish, and we've been asking the ministry to consider delaying it by a year. That will give us enough time to really work through it, because if we get the green light from PSAB, then the auditors will work through it and not qualify, or if they qualify as the first year because the numbers are preliminary and we didn't have enough time for comparables and we had to restate, at least we would know it's something we can rectify. But otherwise, we'll have this in perpetuity. We'll have qualified statements, and that is damaging to our reputation and just the validity of the financial statements. And I'm sure that our external audit partner may have a few words as well.
Please go ahead, Lillian.
Thank you. And just to add to that, the bigger concern from an overall sector perspective, recognizing that this has not only implication on just the Halton District School Board, but for any board that is part of OSB, it may not ultimately achieve the objective of the initial comment from the value for money report. So I think that is important for us to understand also what is ultimately the objective, because this may actually cause inconsistency from board to board, not only from just a presentation of a qualified audit opinion, which despite the fact that it might be qualified, would be very specifically outlining and very limited to this treatment of the OSB interest. We may find that from board to board, there may be inconsistency in how they choose to deal with this ministry requirement. So that is actually, I would say, from a sector perspective, more so something that we as audit firms want to understand, because then we can then accordingly have those proper discussions from with management, as well as with the ministry, as well as with audit committees as well, just to ensure that we all have a true understanding of the implication of this. So that would be kind of my view on where I think the biggest impact is as a result of this directive.
Thank you for that commentary, Lillian. I'm concerned about the impact of inconsistent approaches to reporting, because we need to have a consistent. That's our role, is to be consistent. So this is very concerning. I would like to know if there's any. I don't understand why the Ministry of Education has gone in this direction. Do you have any idea why they've decided to consolidate?
I would say I don't have any specific insight, other than that it really was driven by the Auditor General's report. OSB is OSB does have a fairly sizable amount of net assets. that is certainly something to consider. And if consolidated through school boards, would then roll up provincially as well. So certainly would have implications on the provincial accounts. I think there might be different interpretations as to the Auditor General's recommendations as well. There are many different ways to execute it. Could be done at the school board level, could be done at the ministry level. I would say that there are many different interpretations and variations as to how it could have been executed. I don't have any particular insights as to why this was the route that was chosen. But certainly from a pure, public sector accounting perspective, it does cause quite a wrinkle for us. So I think we are going to try our best to reach the ministry as well as the Auditor General to see what we can do to better understand the ultimate intent.
Thank you very much for that. And I'm not seeing any other hands up. So I would like to thank you for this report and your reporting on it, and move toward the 3.1.5 timelines for financial reporting presentation to board. And again, Superintendent Ngoy.
Thank you. And this is just an update of the various cycles that we have, both in terms of the current year, where we are right now in the financial statements stage. We've dropped in November 8th and 9th at this point because we just don't have a better date. And then for the 22-23, that is the schedule for the upcoming quarterly financial reports. Revised estimates is coming up mid-December as well. Going through then the financial statements in November of next year. So as the board reports are presented to the board, we will be updating the links here so that they are available to all the members of the audit committee, including the external members.
Thank you very much for this report. I don't see any hands up, so I believe that's been well understood. And we can move on to 3.1.6, recruitment of external public representative member. And again, Superintendent Ngoy.
Thank you very much. And through the chair to the audit committee members, with regards to our composition, the Halton District School Board Audit Committee is formed by 5 members, 3 trustee members, and 2 external non-trustee members. In accordance with the regulation, the non-trustee members' term is a 3-year term, and they are able to continue for 2 terms of 3 years, after which we are required to post the vacancy. And should there not be a qualified candidate that will be identified through that recruitment process, we would then be able to offer an additional term to the existing member. Currently, one of our external or non-trustee member has completed the second 3-year term, so we are going to have 1 position for recruitment. The vacancy will go out later this week, will be open for a term of 30 days with interviews planned for early November, and trying to wrap up a decision by mid-November with the appointment later on. The start date of the term is January 1st, so the orientation and transition will occur after that date. Our second audit committee, non-trustee audit committee member will be and has accepted to serve for the second term of 3 years. So we would like to thank Sana Malik for her time, her expertise on the committee, and precious questions and comments that have come forward. So with that, I would like to open it up for questions. Chair Collard, thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any hands, so I do believe we are satisfied with the content of this report. Thank you very much, Superintendent Ngoy. So we will move on to 3.1.7, Joint Election Compliance Audit Committee with Halton Catholic District School Board. And once again, Superintendent Ngoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is, I know there's a recommendation on the screen right now, but this is for information for the audit committee. This is a report that went to board last Wednesday on September 14th, actually. It is a joint committee with the non-trustee members of the audit committee for our board and the Catholic board to make up the membership for a compliance audit committee, which is a requirement under the Elections Act to have in place by October 1st in a year of municipal elections. The eligibility of those who can be members of this committee are included here. And we would like to thank both of our non-trustee members, Sana Malik and Dan Mackerel, for accepting to serve on this committee alongside the two non-trustee members of the Halton Catholic Board. So this is here for information, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And once again, I'm not seeing any hands raised. So this has been a very self-explanatory report. Thank you for providing us with this information. At this time, we will move on to other business, 4.1, public questions and answers. And I will ask Carrie Salemi if we have any questions from the public for this meeting. Please go ahead, Carrie.
We do not have any questions from the public. However, we do need to return to item 2.3, the approval of business in private session before we adjourn.
Oh my goodness, I completely missed that. Thank you for drawing that to my attention. Do you have the private session? I'm going to have to find that. Just a second. I'll find it. I'll get it open. How could I forget that?
I will drop the motion in the comments.
Okay, I've thank you for doing that. That's very helpful. Because by the time I get it open, it's okay. Here we go. Be it resolved that the Audit Committee approve the 2021-2022 annual report to the Board of Trustees and forward the report to the Board of Trustees for acceptance. And I so move. I require a seconder. Thank you, Trustee Reynolds. Are there any comments on this report? Seeing none, all those in favor, please. That passes unanimously. And I do believe that was the only motion from private session. Thank you very much for calling my attention to that, Carrie. So we have no public questions, and so we will then move to the next item, which is the motion to adjourn. And I would like to remind all committee members to please complete your form regarding conflict of interest and submit it at your earliest possible time. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Trustee Reynolds, seconded by I know Santa wants to adjourn. Okay, I'll second that motion. And all those in favor? Thank you. That passes unanimously. We are now adjourned. Have a pleasant evening, and I look forward to seeing you all in November.